So we're talking about trust. Cedric, you said you like the idea of mounting a campaign. What I've seen heretofore is that African Americans, black people, indigenous, if you will, have not been effective. That's not to put anyone down. So what is your idea, if you agree with me on the idea of an effective campaign, what is your idea in terms of an effective campaign relative to what we're talking about to achieve the goals and objectives of the people in their community?
Well, you know, we have to unite. We have to start communicating. We have to find our villages, for lack of better words. There's a lot of different likes and dislikes in our community, and each community needs to organize and find out the data that they need to organize in their communities. And I probably got a little jumbled in that, but basically what I'm saying is we have to come to a common understanding on what step one is for each community. What is it that we really want? What is it that we really need as a collective? And then we must hold the elected officials accountable, these people that got into office, and make sure that they do their part. But in the meantime, not so much, and this is where I think that there's been too much weight, is wondering what someone is supposed to be doing for us, when we should be focused on what can we do for us. You know, there's people out there that are being an example. They started with what they had, and they've been doing effective things in their communities without anybody's funding, without anybody's support. You know, so we need to start doing more of that in our communities. And again, number one is get our data. See, you know, we're living in a world of algorithms, and that's their data. We have to be able to accumulate data to go to prove what the real truth of what we want in our community and what we need in our communities.
Okay, so am I correct in saying that, number one, unify as a people? Number two, data. We need accurate and correct data. And do for self, as opposed to expecting someone else to do for.
And I'd like those to be more like bullet points and not in order. That wasn't in order like 1, 2, 3, but more like bullet points. Some of the suggested right off the top of my head, some of the things that we need to do in order to organize.
Right. So you're saying I don't have them in order?
Well,
hey, look, wait a minute. If that's what you're saying, you're right. They're not in order. Because I have debowl machines down here is number 3. But I skipped it to do for self. And I think the do for self was way up there around number 2. But anyway, so we have this down. I've got it on paper to look at and discuss, you know, later on, etc. Omar, what do you think about these debowl machines, these voting machines that we are dealing with here in Memphis, Tennessee?
You know, several states have outlawed it and removed it from the voting process.
Okay.
Dr. Talut said the money is there. It's up to community action groups such as the Love Power Show and others to come forward and say and demand, not just say, but demand that these machines be replaced. I don't know how many times Judge Joe Brown has come on this show and talked about the debowl machines and
how corrupt they are.
How corrupt they are, and how much of a lunatic you have to be to trust them. So if that be the case, and it is the case in many states, they've gotten rid of them. What are we holding on to?
Yes.
We need to go ahead and all come together collectively and demand that they remove them before any other election comes up anywhere in the future. If they got the money, hell, it would just be a few weeks where they could put them in every location they need to help me and everywhere in the world.
Well, Talut, let me ask you.
How long will it run?
How is this a matter of legislation when it comes to these machines, or is it a matter of what Omar said and Cedric?
No, it's a matter of, well, let me back up. It's a matter of the Shelby County Election Commission, which the commission is made up of 3
So
Republicans.
you're not, so you're just recording.
The commission is made up of 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, as I understand it. Okay.
Phone's going
And these people are the ones who would make the decision as to when they would purchase
on. You got the phone.
new machines. But look,
That phone.
the truth is this. The truth is, Memphis, Tennessee, a major city in the United States, is has majority African American, black folk, colored folk, Negro population. Okay, and there are people and powers in this city who refuse to concede. They refuse to accept their own democracy and allow the will of the people to be expressed. And especially because the will would be those of African American people. Our will proceed. Our will will be executed if the elections are done right. So these people would do anything necessary to prevent African American people from having full control of a city where they have control of the population. It's actually called apartheid. It's the exact same principle, exact same process of in the past South Africa. The exact same apartheid, the exact same government, the exact same ideas, the exact same views and concepts that African American people or African people should not determine their own destiny. See, when you have a majority of the population, you would have control of the political process by virtue of that alone. Now, the other point is the wealthy people and the racist people, they refuse to concede, meaning that we're at war. We're at political war for our future. And many of us don't understand that or will not accept that until the political bombs are dropped on us. Then we'll cry out about why they're doing us like this. They're doing us like this because you don't vote. You don't like to get involved in politics. You don't see any purpose in politics. You don't like the white man's creation of politics. You don't like the idea that you got to stand in line. You don't like the idea that it takes your time. You don't like the idea that it doesn't go your way every time. You don't like the idea that we as a people should be in this process. And the reason you don't like these ideas is because frankly you're insane. You have no sense. You don't recognize the ideals that build and structure institutions and societies. You don't want to have any role in it. You want to lay back and wait on other people to do things and lay back and allow other people to go to the poll and then
complain.
Exactly. Complain and cry every time somebody has their foot around your neck or a billy club up against your head or shot and killed by officials. Then you want to cry and protest and march, but you voted for that. When you vote for a racist, you are voting for racist principles, racist ideals, and racist institutions. Many of us do that. We're just that crazy. We vote against our best interests. We sit back and cry and moan and groan in pain and agony because we're mistreated, or what we call mistreated, or because the forces to be keep their foot around our neck and rule us with an iron fist. And you sit back as stupid people, ignorant people, dumb people, and then accept the consequences and then come out and cry a little bit when they bust one of our heads or shoot one of us down. Then you go on back in your house and sit back and look at Cops, the TV program Cops. And you sit back and watch cops shoot and kill and beat folks all over again. Then you come out in the street and then you see the real sides of that, then you hope that particular killing end up on Cops the next series.
All right, we've got Mr. Horace Taylor here with us today, and we're talking strategy among other things. Let's hear from Mr. Taylor. We were talking about putting a campaign together, and we went over some ideas as to an effective campaign, basically boiling down to strategy. And go right ahead and talk to us about strategy. Mr. Horace Taylor, everybody, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you so much.
Let me get the number right quick. Give us a call, 901-452-3094. 901-324-7490. Give us a call right here, AM 1600, AM 730, KQPN 93.3. Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, so with respect to strategy, though I came in on the tail end of the strategy discussion, let me just share this little angle of a strategy. Everybody knows that I am a candidate for the office of the President of the United States. But I've been asked exactly how do I see building that campaign. Well, since I'm here in the city of Memphis, my hometown, as we know, just a week ago, we had the mayor's election. In fact, those second place runner-ups, as I would like to refer to them, those are the teams, the campaign teams that I perceive that I will go to them and ask if they would join my campaign, because they have that political machine already behind them. So I wouldn't necessarily have to build that strategy or build that infrastructure, if you will. That's one strategy that I'm looking at. And what that strategy will do, since, again, we just had the mayor's race in this town, everybody, for the most part, I think, are still in that political mindset, in that election mindset. And if I can take that and then build upon Memphis and make Memphis matter in the upcoming 2020 election, that's a strategy that will galvanize, I believe, the city of Memphis. And we will no longer have these small turnouts, historical low turnouts for the mayor's race, or for any race for that matter.
Well, Mr. Taylor, let me ask you this. How, if we say that people in Memphis are suffering from voter apathy, will an effective strategy work without some prerequisites with regard to, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the conditions of a people? Is that something that needs to be addressed? The conditions of a people, and we're talking specifically to Memphis, about Memphis, of Memphis, and for Memphis. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, so we have to look at it from this angle. Everybody has different ideals that move them, right? For me, it's education. I'm all about education. The way I see it, if you're able to keep a person uneducated or miseducated while pulling the wool over his head, you can always count on that person to do this, that, or whatever you want for them. But once that person becomes educated and know what's going on, then the game or the field somewhat becomes more level.
Okay, all right, back to Omar Baruti. Omar, what do you say about the conditions of the people of Memphis relative to our politics in this city? Go ahead, sir.
You know, black folk in Memphis have always been on the bottom, and we are still on the bottom. And until we get somebody that can see the need of the people, we're going to stay on the bottom. But we need to have a backroom discussion about who's going to run for the mayor's office and who's going to run for every office. And we need to also have a committee that's set up so that if you don't keep your word, we ain't going to wait for the next election. We're going to pull you out of office at the next opportunity. We're going to go back and have a recall vote. Same thing with the mayor we got now. He claimed he did this, that, and the other. But if you don't honor your commitment to us, then we need to pull you out of office. Not because you're white, just because you ain't doing what you promised. You keep your promise, you keep your office. You don't keep your promise, then we got something for you. But again, politics is war. Business is war. We want war on every front, but we act like we don't know a war is going on. We got to wake up, people. But what Dr. Horace just said is true. You got to be engaged. You got to be involved. You got to be educated to what's going on, what time it is. These people know they're going out. But what are you going to do if they do become the minority population? You ain't going to be ready for nothing. You're not going to be ready. On the plantation, they had a slave master and his children, but they had, hundreds of slaves, and those few little people control those hundreds of slaves. We still on that same plantation. Wait,
Yeah, and someone mentioned, I stepped out a minute, mentioned or made a comparison, as I've done before, of Memphis to South Africa, where the minority controls the majority. And then Strickland boasting about what he's done for the minority. And see, that's a slick play on words. We are not the minority, we are the majority. I've done this, and thus for the minority, he said. So we have to be careful and watch out for these little tricks. According to Dr. Eleanor De La Vega and Dr. Gregory Blumenthal, in 2018, the overall poverty rate in Shelby County increased by 15% over the last year. That was bucking the national trend under Jim Strickland's, during Jim Strickland's administration. And Cedric, these are the kinds of things that we're talking about looking out for. These doctors say one thing, Strickland says something different. Which is true, Cedric? And what do we as a people do about it?
Well, what is true is that the media and the press is controlling all of this. And the election here, we can clearly see what just happened. I mean, we are trained to believe the media and the press. All the media and the press needed to do was to mention any one of these other candidates who were running, and it would have put them in the race. They were controlling the whole entire race. They spoke much more of Jim Strickland than they did of Harrington. And you see the outcome that came in. They refused to speak about the other candidates at all, really. And so we didn't even know that there were other candidates running. And we wouldn't accept the fact that there were other candidates running. Similar to Brother Horace over here, who's running for President of the United States. Without the media and the press, the mind of the people is sold on whatever is coming on out of the media and the press. I mean, well, let's look at Jim Strickland real quickly, and just one simple thing. We're in the worst poverty crisis we've ever been in here in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, and Jim Strickland.
And he sat right there. He's the one who, hey, he's the head honcho, so he created it. I mean, that's his job. I mean, he's going to accept any good that we do. So you got to accept any bad that your administration does. And you put us in the worst situation ever. But the news painted him as some hero, and the people followed this heroism that he has done. We look at the fact that he was just recently basically indicted on being using wrongful tactics and the punishment of citizens of his city by the use of bolo lists and things such as that. But we went ahead and somehow put him right back in office. I mean, again, media and the press, we have to somehow get away from our media and the press and start getting to real data. Like you said, the doctors say what they say. And then we say Jim Strickland, who has no degree of doctorism in medical whatever, is going to go counteract it. Who is correct? We know who's correct. Right. The doctors are correct. The societies for the environmental protections and things like that are correct. The people who have proven that that MATA has been charging well over $333 million for what we should be paying are correct. What is not correct is the media and the press, and we have to start holding these people accountable, or we have to find a way to disconnect from them or create our own.
Talut, El-Amin. Go ahead.
Yeah,
The state of the city.
Excellent question. The state of the city of Memphis is actually at its lowest point that it has been in my lifetime, in that the city's population is, steadily growing, but the opportunities, the economy, the wages of the middle class citizens are decreasing. Meaning that a poor economy, meaning that we are slipping even further backwards. And in comparison to other major cities of our size, I mean, we're actually standing still and have been standing still for a couple of decades now, or more. You know, cities like Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, all these cities are progressing. You know, in fact, every city that Dr. Martin Luther King went and visited in a mild form and helped the people along and helped them understand that racism is not a good thing, that accepted his teachings, like Montgomery, Alabama, and places like that. They're doing well, they're growing. They accepted their responsibility to all of the people, and they're growing. Memphis rejected its responsibility to all of the people, and Memphis assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King. And we have been stagnant ever since. It's like a punishment. It's like a divine punishment of some kind. It's like a, how would you say it? It's like standing still. You know,
static.
Yeah, stagnant and regressive. You know, that's the state of Memphis, Tennessee. Look at the political climate. People are like zombies here.
That's right.
And everybody knows it. Everybody of any national acclaim that visit Memphis always make the exact same statement, and that is, something is wrong in Memphis. They look at the body language of the people. They look at the ability of the people to respond, and they can't find anything. It's meaning that, and that simply means that there is something wrong in Memphis. We're politically dead. We're politically dead people. Look, a people who are alive are people who are progressive, who know how to expand their economy. Oh, in fact, black folks, African Americans, Negroes, and colors, we don't have an economy. Okay, but we are responsible to have an economy. You know, we have the responsibility of developing an economy, and we won't do it. So it's something wrong. So in these other cities where African Americans are growing and doing things, they put together their economy, like in Atlanta, Georgia, where people are just progressive, and they're not caught in that war of specifically black-white war, like we are in Memphis, specifically in Memphis, black-white. They're doing their thing. They're down there cutting movies and music and whatever else they're doing to make it, and their economy is growing. Here in Memphis, the city of music, African Americans stopped doing music. Stop doing entertainment. Don't even look at anything that has to do with entertainment. Why? Because there is something wrong in Memphis.
All right, the assassination of Dr. King in the city of Memphis. And I'll tell you, that is not something to be taken lightly. That is something to be taken seriously. Because when we talk about the condition of a people and effective strategy, these things should be considered. Mr. Horace Taylor, the assassination of Dr. King here in Memphis, like Talut said, since then, Memphis has continued on this downward spiral. And he's absolutely right, Talut, that it is the work, and I mentioned it earlier, when I was young and growing up, and even when I was running around selling goods and wares in the city of Memphis, Tennessee, the economy wasn't so bad. And I'll tell you something else, these politicians, and I'm coming right to you. They've allowed the interlopers to enter into the city of Memphis and take billions of dollars out of the city of Memphis economy. That's something else that we're facing, Talut,
Yes.
as we rebuild our own economy as a people. And I think this is what men and women of courage do, with backbone. I think that's what they do.
That's right.
We take into account of the naysayers, the Piankis of the world. We debate, we fight about it. Does the assassination of Dr. King, Mr. Taylor, have anything to do with the conditions and the mindset of the people of Memphis, Tennessee? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I would say absolutely it has something to do with it. It has a very profound impact on it. But what happens, well, what has happened is, how has that message been shared with the people here in Memphis? In particular, the young folk. As I grew up, you know, I'm only a few days over 50 now, but as I grew up, I remember seeing or watching on the television the same civil rights march over and over and over and over, until the point that it had no impact upon me. As I said earlier, education, right? Having lived life now a little while, having gone to school, having lived abroad for a few years, and now having raised 4 children, and can see firsthand how important it is to be the first educator for my young children, and almost to the point of being the only educator to my young children. For example, I once lived in Hawaii. I had been teaching my daughter about ancient Africa, and it just so happened she came home one day with an assignment. In the classroom, she said, the instructor said, paper originated in Egypt, ancient Egypt. But yet, we were studying for a test, and the test information said paper was created some other place. And I said to my daughter, I said, how is that possible? Here you have the lesson where the instructor said, this is what happened, but yet on the test, they say, you to write the answer this way. And I said, something is very wrong with that. When you can know, when you can be taught what is right, but only to pass the test, you'd have to write the wrong answer. Or the right answer for the test.
Yeah.
Not what's factual. So our education, or the assassination of Dr. King, and not knowing the impact of that, that's a direct reflection of how that incident has been shared over the years from an educational standpoint. It has simply been minimized, minimized, and minimized. And as I remember you speaking earlier about the re-education that we get yearly, monthly, almost daily on the Holocaust. But yet, when we hear of a civil rights issue, it's never to that extent. Those of us who are in the fight, yes, we understand it. But those who are outside, who for the most part are being educated by the system, they are totally missing it. Totally missing it. So, in fact, Dr. King's assassination has had a huge impact on the educational system here.
Okay, thank you. Omar, in terms of talking about the conditions of a people, we're talking about effective strategy, and we're also now talking about something more specific, the assassination of Dr. King. Well, discuss for us before the assassination, around and during the time of the assassination of Dr. King, and after. In terms of has it had an effect on the people of Memphis, Tennessee? And we're leaning toward negativity here.
You know, there was a Dr. William Pepper,
Yes.
an attorney, who wrote a book called An Act of State, and followed with another book called Orders to Murder, talking about the murder of Dr. King. They blamed it on James Earl Ray, but they know James Earl Ray was just a fall guy. And James Earl Ray went to his death never confessing to the murder of Dr. King, never. Most people on their deathbed would say, let me just get it all out, because I'm leaving here anyway, you can't do nothing to me now. He never did that.
Right.
because he was not the murderer of Dr. King. And then the question you should ask black folk in America is, why would they seal the case on Dr. King for 50 years? What's the purpose of sealing that file for 50 years? And then when the 50 years is up, you seal it some more? What's the purpose? Is it because you don't want them to follow the blood trail that would lead straight back to the federal government? Because Dr. King was no longer dreaming. He was no longer in a dreamlike state. He was waking up. And it was that he was about to tell our people what was really happening in this country and what we had to do about it. A radicalized Dr. King. And you couldn't afford for that radicalized Dr. King to walk with the likes of the Malcolm X, or walk with the likes of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You couldn't afford to do that. So you had to take him out. Yes. They put us back to sleep and they give us a Dr. King that had a dream. But they don't tell us anything about the Dr. King that came out of the dreamlike state and was coming to do something about the problem that we face, not just in Memphis, but in America. But that's the way they operate.
Okay, so the one thing I heard you mention right there is sleep. Putting a group of people back to sleep. Does that presuppose that this group of people were awake at that time, but as a result of this, we've gone back to sleep? Is there an element of fear to do and take action in that equation, Omar, since the assassination of Dr. King? Fear among a group of people. Go ahead, sir.
Let's look at history. When you know who you are, and we black folk don't know who we are.
Okay.
We've been told we were this, that, and the other. We believe all of this, that, and the other they give us.
Okay.
And some of us don't even want to look at Africa. I ain't lost nothing in Africa. And why would I want to go over there? Because that's your homeland. That's where you came from. And your strength is in recognizing your roots. You got to recognize your roots. But as long as they keep you separated from your roots, separated from your history, they can control you. And right now in this country, it's all about mind control. If I can train you, like Dr. Horace said, if I can train you to do certain things, I ain't got to worry about you. I know what you're gonna do because I trained you to do it. Mm-hmm. So you're my slave, mental slave. You don't have handcuffs on like you used to. But again, you still my slave, and I ain't got to worry about you because I can predict your behavior because I put it there. I programmed you to go that direction. They do that all over the earth. When Patrice Lumumba came into power, they had him assassinated. And just think about the evil of this mindset. Eisenhower had already planned to go and kill him after he got into power. But it so happened another company, I forgot the other company killed him. They buried him. And then a few weeks after they buried him, they dug his body up. Mm-hmm. They cut it up with a saw and then put it in acid to make sure he didn't come back. Mm-hmm. As if the dead can come back to life. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't the dead come back to life, it's that thinking, the idea that this man was a revolutionary and you're going to idolize him and you're going to follow in his footsteps. The Vietnamese kicked our butt. Because the Vietnamese knew who they were, yeah. And they knew they were Vietnamese when the war was over.
Right.
They didn't have no problem fighting us.
That's
and
right.
They never thought they would lose.
That's right.
We didn't win that war. We came home with our tail between our legs.
That's right.
Leave the military equipment, everything else we could think of. We never we came out there running. When black folk wake up like that and understand you at war, and this man cannot defeat you. If you got God on your side, he cannot defeat you. Then you will go to war like you are really a soldier at war, and you cannot lose that battle. And you got to understand that.
Omar, they said, let's get out of here, man. Let's roll. And French had a problem too. Hey, Ben, the French had a problem in Vietnam.
Look at what they did in Haiti.
We got to get out of here.
Look at what they did in Haiti.
That's right.
The brothers in Haiti defeated 3 armies, including Napoleon, who was supposed to be the master general. They defeated 3 armies, and they never thought they'd ever lose. Ever. That mindset was there that we can't be defeated if God is on our side.
Okay, Cedric, coming to you now. The assassination of Dr. King. Well, your analysis.
Well, you guys really covered a lot in it, but let's go back to his dream. His dream was in 1963, but as Dr. Omar cleared us up with. By 1968, he had the mountaintop speech. Yeah. And that was a whole different Dr. King. He had already been dreaming, and he got to the mountaintop. Now I can see, and he was a whole different man. So, that in itself, and then the passing of a baton. Whenever someone does something as life-giving as Dr. King did. We always hope that someone's gonna pick up the torch, pick up the baton and keep it going. And I think that baton has been just dangling in space right now. It's a lot of people who touched it and might have carried it for a minute or two, but they can't hold on to that baton. And I see a generation. I see these millennials that we say are not listening. I think that they're creating, and they, matter of fact, not thinking. We can see they're creating right now, and that's what we need. Someone who can't see the box. We can't. We don't want to see a top. We don't want to see a limitation anymore. And this generation that's coming up really doesn't have any limitations. They're not taking, unfortunately, a lot of direction, and unfortunately and fortunately, because a lot of the directions that we're trying to give are really not the directions that they need to be taken right now. So, when we talk about Dr. King, those are the things that I'm also speaking. I would personally look at, and at the same time, let's look at our sharks. We got sharks in the water right now. This country is being run by sharks. But did you ever see the sharks when you watch the National Geographic channel? I didn't go out swimming with the sharks, but I did watch it on the tube. Now, what happens with the sharks? You know those real nice little fish, the dolphins we like to go swim with? Let those sharks go where they mess with them dolphins, and let them dolphins unite. Let me tell you, they will turn chop suey into a shark. And so that's what we have to do. We have to unite, us nice little people. Us people, us frail people who've been run over and taken advantage of and stripped and things such as that. We have to unite like our dolphins, and we have to take out these sharks.
Okay, Talut, the assassination of Dr. King, and I think you've touched on it quite a bit, but elaborate on whether or not this had a negative, devastating effect on the people of Memphis, especially when it comes to fear and taking action. And while you're at it, talk to us about what should be done about it, and talk strategy as well.
Thank you. That's another excellent question. In that, of course, we know that throughout our experience here in the United States, people who rise from among us and became leaders among us were all assassinated. They were all, every one of them. Okay, well, maybe there was a couple who escaped the assassination or mentions, and throughout the years and throughout the decades, as far back as in my lifetime, there have been killings, summary judgment, executions, police killing people. That puts fear in the hearts of weak people. Okay, weak people are going to be affected. They're going to see death as the ultimate punishment, not a part of life cycle like normal. It's a punishment. Death is a punishment. So if you misbehave or conduct yourself poorly, you're likely to be lynched. You're likely to be punished by death. Well, death has been a tool used for as long as human beings been walking the planet as a punishment.
Yes.
Get used to it. Get used to it. Stop being afraid to die for what you believe in. Start becoming courageous and willing to die for what you believe in. That's the way God Almighty wants us. Doesn't want us to be afraid because some people we think are powerful and they have this equipment and that kind of equipment, and so therefore we should succumb to their power and do as we're told and act as we should act. No. We have to become a people who conduct ourselves and act like we are, whoever we are. I mean, we're not acting right, so we'll get together sooner or later. We're just not acting right now. Okay, so the point of the matter is, Dr. King's assassination struck fear in the hearts of African American people because it was done in broad daylight. It was done right in front of our eyes. We could see it on TV. We were able to witness it one-on-one. So you have these people who are in their 60s, 70s, and dying naturally, still afraid that they're going to be punished by death. I mean, you got 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot on earth, and still afraid of being, still afraid of dying at the hands of Caucasian, European, whites, and policemen. So what? Die however you want to die. It doesn't make any difference. God put us on this earth to die. We're going to die. But if we died for something, we'll be a great people.
Yes.
My last point is this, that get used to it. Every time it happens, fight against it. But don't be afraid to go out the next day. Don't be afraid every time you see a police car, you just, oh, police. Every time a police car drives behind you, oh, police behind me.
Right.
Make sure I do everything right. Every time, come on now. Look, what kind of life are you living in the city of Memphis if you are that afraid of policemen? You're so afraid that every time a car shows up, you want to pee on yourself. Stop being like that. Become men and women and govern yourself. If you want to be above the law, then don't break the law. That means that you're above the law. Okay? Do the right thing. Stop doing all this crazy stuff that we're seeing throughout our city, especially cars. Cars racing through the traffic and zooming at 90 miles an hour. When you get caught, then you're downtown with all the rest of those Negro people standing up there in 201 Poplar, like about 1,000, that did all kinds of stupid stuff like you just did. So what we need to do is change our behavior, change our ideas, start thinking like men and women. Learn, first of all, learn what a man is, learn what a woman is. Read some books, learn some things that these people have done that are actually great. You know, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You know, read some untraditional books. Books that are not heavily circulated. So, you know, some of those off the street books, some of those books that you would find in the alley. Read some of those books and learn what our people actually have done and what our people are actually doing.
All right, we've got 5 minutes left. So I want to hear from everyone before we close out. Mr. Horace Taylor, I want to ask you, what is your perspective on what must be done relative to the people, to, for, and by, and with the people of Memphis when it comes to courage, strength, and how, back to the assassination of Dr. King here in Memphis and its importance. Go ahead, sir.
So with respect to courage and strength, whether you're educated or not, when you're faced with an obstacle, whether that obstacle is life-threatening or not, there is a natural propensity in man to stand up for himself and herself. I often refer, or like to refer back to education. An uneducated person, for whatever that means, still know what to do when confronted with a life-threatening situation. With respect to education, however, as you live life, those life experiences now start to shape how you will react to this, that, and the other. So that's why in my book, in my playbook in life, in growing, I often have to look at my children and say, with the things that I've experienced in life, how can I prepare them? And it's from that home perspective of teaching them right. Not just to say, this person did something right, that person did something wrong, but teaching them the whole perspective of how you can be right in one instance and the very same behavior may very well be considered wrong in another situation. You have to educate a person as they are learning in life, because as we become young adults and we can't wait to get into the workforce and we have that strong back. If I go up to one of the packing or distribution centers and I can sling boxes, 40 pounds, 50 pounds, it doesn't matter. At some point, my back is going to give out.
Yes.
And what then do I turn to? What strength, what courage do I fall upon then? It has to be that thing that you have learned, you know, the educational aspect of it.
Sure.
Because when you grow weak, you have to have still that strong mind.
Okay.
And that's what's going to get us through.
Well, let me ask you this. In your campaign, in your bid for the presidency, will your campaign be run by an effective strategy? And tell us something. We've got about 3 minutes left before we have to close out. As quickly as you can, 60 seconds. An effective strategic campaign, and what's your thoughts at this point?
Yes, from the most strategic standpoint, this is the way my campaign is being run. If I'm successful at getting the second runner-up mayor candidates on my team as we chart for the office of the presidency, those in the state of Tennessee, those politicians in the state of Tennessee should know that here, this little commoner, this little common everyday Memphis country boy has now launched his campaign, his bid for the office of the presidency. It would say to all our congressmen, to our senators, and everybody else, if this guy is even remotely successful, we are on notice, because they become the collateral damage. And that's the strategy that I'm employing here. If I can win the city of Memphis by galvanizing here in the city of Memphis, thus the state of Tennessee, which for the last 50 years, with the exception of the period when Clinton was elected, has gone to the Republican candidate, right? Those 11 electoral votes. That's what I would do. I would be focused on turning this state again into a blue state for my election. That's the strategy that I'm employing.
All right, final thoughts, Omar Baruti.
Final thoughts. I want the listening audience to tune in today to the Nation of Islam webcast in commemoration of the Million Man March. I was there that day. I was blown away. In the dark, at 2 o'clock in the morning, Holly Springs, Mississippi is going out into the area there where we're going to meet. Look, we saw about 300,000 or 400,000 people standing there in the dark. That's how serious it is.
All right, final thoughts, Cedric.
Oh, yes, sir. I just wanted to give a couple of announcements. Indigenous Peoples Day tomorrow. We have to start recognizing and symbolizing our day, which is Indigenous Peoples Day. They have changed the name of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and then we have Books and Breakfast on this coming Saturday. And then we have on this Saturday, on the 19th, we have the upcoming town hall meeting out in the community in
New Chicago.
In New Chicago.
Yes.
All right. So that's the Love Power Show. Is going to be hosting that one. We're also going to be involved in
November the 2nd.
November the 2nd, and that's at Hollywood and Summer.
Yes.
And so we'll be uniting with other groups and organizations. So we're out in the streets. The Community Action Committee is moving forward. So please contact us. Wallace Ray, please give us the number to call. That 644 number.
0186. All right.
Area code 901.
All right. Thank you.